It all started with a simple favor, a request so casual it didn't seem like it would lead to anything significant. But then there was that moment, the one look, that one glance from my grandson Lucas, which shifted everything. I never expected what came next, and neither did he. What seemed like a moment of ordinary help turned into something neither of us could have prepared for. Where are you watching from today? Drop your city in the comments. I love knowing where you're from. Let's dive into this unexpected journey. It was just supposed to be a favor, nothing more. Lucas, my grandson, had called earlier in the day, asking if I could help him with something small. Just a few minutes of your time, Grandma. It'll mean a lot, he'd said, the urgency in his voice a little more than usual. He sounded so sincere, so earnest, I couldn't refuse. After all, it wasn't the first time I'd helped him out, and it probably wouldn't be the last. I was sitting in the living room, enjoying my afternoon tea, the soft hum of the television in the background as I watched the latest news. The sun was beginning to set, casting a warm golden hue through the window, but I wasn't expecting Lucas until later. Still, when I heard the soft knock on the door, my heart gave a little skip. He was early. I opened the door, smiling as I saw him standing there. Lucas, my grandson, was a handsome young man in his late 20s, tall with a build that reminded me of his father, but he had his mother's eyes. Those blue eyes, they were the kind of eyes that seemed to see right through you. Always searching, always understanding. Sometimes it felt like he could read my thoughts before I even spoke. "Hey Grandma, you busy?" he asked, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. His casual tone was the same as always, but there was something in the way he said it this time that made me pause. I shook my head, a little smile on my lips. "Not at all, just finishing my tea." "What's up?" I motioned for him to sit, gesturing to the chair across from me. I had a feeling this was no ordinary request, but I couldn't place why. He looked around, his gaze briefly flicking over the room before returning to me. "I was hoping you could help me with a favor." "It's nothing big," he hesitated, his voice faltering for a second. "Just something I've been struggling with." I raised an eyebrow. "What's going on?" His eyes, those familiar blue eyes, locked onto mine, and there it was again. The feeling that he wasn't just looking at me, but through me, as though trying to gauge if I would understand. "I need some advice," he said slowly. "Something personal. And I know you've been through a lot in your life. I thought you might have some perspective." Now my curiosity was piqued. Lucas wasn't one to seek advice lightly, especially not from me. He was the kind of young man who liked to solve his own problems, even if he didn't always succeed. But today something was different. His voice had a softness to it, a vulnerability that made me sit up straighter in my chair. "Of course, sweetheart," I said gently, trying to offer him the kind of comfort I knew he needed. "You can talk to me about anything." He seemed to relax, but just for a moment. He stood up, pacing a little, his hands shoved into his pockets. "It's just," he trailed off, clearly gathering his thoughts. "I don't really know how to say this, Grandma. I've been feeling different lately about things, about life, and it's messing with my head." I watched him, my heart heavy with the weight of unspoken words. Lucas had always been a thoughtful young man, never the reckless type. If he was struggling with something, I knew it had to be serious. "Take your time," I said, trying to put him at ease. He stopped pacing, turning to face me. There was that look again, his gaze a little too intense, a little too focused on me. My stomach fluttered, a strange feeling rising in my chest. He took a step closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "Now, Grandma, I don't know how to explain it, but there's this feeling, this connection I've been feeling, not just with people in general, but with you." My heart skipped a beat. What was he trying to say? He continued before I could process the words. "It's like, I don't know how to describe it, but sometimes when I look at you, it's not just because you're my grandmother. It's more than that." He paused, his breath shallow, his eyes searching my face for any sign of understanding. The room seemed to hold its breath. I could hear the faint rustling of leaves outside the window, the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen, but everything else felt distant, as if the world had narrowed down to just the two of us in that room. I looked at him, my heart heavy with the weight of his words. He was struggling with something deep inside, something he wasn't sure how to articulate. It wasn't just a casual conversation anymore. It felt like something much more profound, something that neither of us could have expected. "Lucas," I said softly, my voice steady, despite the storm of emotions inside me. "I understand more than you think. And in that moment I realized something. He wasn't just asking for advice. He was asking for understanding. And what he didn't know yet was that I understood him more than anyone ever could. I had lived through enough of life to recognize that look in his eyes. It was the look of someone who had stumbled upon a realization, a truth they hadn't been ready to face. "Let's talk about it," I said, my heart pounding in my chest. "Whatever it is, we'll figure it out together." But as I said those words, something shifted in the air between us. A tension I hadn't anticipated, but one I couldn't ignore. It was just a simple favor. Or so I thought. But now, as I looked at Lucas, my grandson, my family, I realized that sometimes even the simplest moments could change everything. And that's when I saw it. That look, that one fleeting glance he gave me. It wasn't just confusion or concern. It was something more. Something that made my heart race and my mind whirl. The moment lingered. Neither of us moved, the silence stretching between us as we both processed what had just passed between us. Neither of us said a word, but I knew things would never be the same again, and I had no idea what to do next. The air in the room felt thick now, as if something unspoken had settled between us, something that both of us could feel, but didn't quite know how to address. I tried to break the silence, but the words caught in my throat. What could I say? I had no experience with this kind of conversation. No road map for how to navigate the heavy emotions swirling around us. Lucas was staring at me, his eyes still holding that intensity, but now there was something different in them. It wasn't just confusion anymore. It was something deeper, something more uncertain. His usual confidence, the charm he wore like a second skin, seemed to have melted away, leaving only a vulnerable young man standing before me. I could see it in the way he shifted his weight from foot to foot, in the way his hands nervously tugged at the hem of his shirt. "Grandma," he said quietly, his voice barely audible. "I didn't mean to make things weird." I stood up slowly, my legs suddenly feeling unsteady, as though the ground beneath me had shifted. "Lucas," I began, my voice shaking just slightly. "You didn't make anything weird." His eyes met mine again, searching, unsure. "But I said something that made you uncomfortable, didn't I?" I shook my head, a soft laugh escaping my lips. It was a nervous laugh, but it was all I could manage at the moment. "No, it's not that." I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I had to be strong for him. "I just wasn't expecting this conversation, that's all. But we can talk about it, whatever it is that's on your mind." The weight in the room grew heavier with each passing second. Lucas wasn't just asking for advice anymore. He was confiding in me in a way that felt more intimate than anything we had shared before. And as I stood there trying to find the right words, I realized something important. I had been his grandmother for his entire life. I had been the one he looked to for guidance, for wisdom. But now, in this moment, I felt the roles had shifted. He wasn't just my grandson anymore. He was a man who was looking for answers, looking for someone to help him make sense of feelings that were clearly confusing him. He took a deep breath as if steeling himself for something. "Grandma," he said, his voice steadier now. "I've been feeling these things for a while. And it's not just you. I feel this way about a lot of things in my life, about who I am, what I'm supposed to be, but with you it's different." My heart was pounding in my chest. I felt his words reverberate in my bones. And yet I wasn't sure if I truly understood what he was trying to say. He had always been close to me. But this was a new kind of closeness. "Different how?" I asked softly, my voice trembling more than I wanted it to. He looked away, his gaze dropping to the floor as though he were embarrassed. "I don't know. It's just when I look at you, there's something in me that wants to connect with you in a way I don't know how to explain. It's confusing, and I feel like I shouldn't feel this way." I took a step closer to him, my heart aching with empathy. He was struggling with something so personal, so raw. And here I was, his grandmother, trying to understand something that didn't have an easy answer. But I knew I had to be there for him. I couldn't turn my back now. "Lucas," I whispered, reaching out to touch his arm gently. "It's okay to feel confused. Life isn't always easy to understand, and sometimes the emotions we feel aren't as clear-cut as we'd like them to be." I paused, taking another breath. "But you don't have to be afraid of what you feel. I'm here for you no matter what." He met my gaze, his eyes searching mine, and in that moment I saw the relief flood through him. The tension in his shoulders eased and his posture softened. I've never told anyone this before, he admitted. I didn't want to mess things up. I didn't want to feel strange, but you're the one person I can trust. There it was. The truth between us. A simple moment, a small favor, had opened up a floodgate of emotions neither of us had expected. And yet somehow we were both there, feeling what we needed to feel, saying what we needed to say. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding, stepping back slightly to get in space. We'll figure this out, okay? I said, my voice gentle but firm. There's no need to rush anything. Whatever you're going through, I'll be here to help you through it. Lucas nodded, his face softening. Thanks, Grandma. I don't know what I would do without you. I smiled, my heart swelling with pride and love for this young man who had come to me with something so personal. But deep inside I knew there was more to come. More that neither of us was ready to fully understand. The conversation didn't end right there. It couldn't. What had started as a simple request for help had turned into a profound moment of emotional connection. It wasn't just about advice anymore. It was about mutual understanding, about recognizing that sometimes life throws us curveballs that leave us questioning everything we thought we knew. As Lucas stepped back, still processing his feelings, I couldn't shake the feeling that this moment, this conversation, would be a turning point for both of us. Things weren't just different now. They were changing in ways neither of us could fully grasp yet. And though the future felt uncertain, I knew one thing for sure. Our bond had grown stronger, deeper than I ever imagined it could. The air between us felt charged, heavy with the weight of emotions we hadn't known how to carry before. And as we stood there in the dim light of the room, I realized that sometimes it was the unexpected moments, the ones we didn't plan for, that left the deepest marks on our hearts. The days after that conversation passed in a blur. The tension between Lucas and me had settled, but it lingered in the quiet spaces, unspoken but palpable. I found myself thinking about our talk more than I expected to. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, his confusion, his vulnerability, and that one look that had changed everything. I had always been a pillar for my family, a grandmother, a matriarch, someone they all turned to for guidance. But this was different. This wasn't a question of advice or simple life lessons. This was something deeper, something that made me question the very foundation of our relationship. But even with all the uncertainty and the shifting feelings, I knew one thing. Whatever was happening, Lucas was still my grandson, and I would stand by him no matter what. It was one evening about a week later when I found myself at the kitchen table trying to focus on the crossword puzzle in front of me, but my mind kept drifting back to that conversation. The quiet knock on the door snapped me out of my thoughts, and I looked up, half expecting it to be Lucas again. When I opened the door, I was surprised to see him standing there. He wasn't early this time. He had come exactly when he said he would. His expression was soft, less guarded than it had been the last time we spoke, but still carrying the weight of the unspoken words between us. "Hey, Grandma," he said quietly, his voice almost apologetic. "Can I come in?" "Of course, Lucas," I replied, stepping aside to let him through. I hadn't expected him to come back so soon, but in hindsight I knew he needed someone. He was still trying to work through his emotions, and I couldn't blame him for that. He made his way into the living room, sitting on the same couch as last time, but this time he didn't immediately speak. We sat there in silence for a moment, the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sounds of traffic outside filling the space. It was as if we were both waiting for the other to break the silence. Finally, Lucas shifted, his hands clasped together in front of him. "I've been thinking," he began, his voice careful about everything we talked about. I nodded, encouraging him to continue. "What about it?" "I just want to make sure I'm not making things awkward. You know?" he said, his eyes avoiding mine. "I don't want to hurt you or make you feel uncomfortable." I felt a pang of empathy for him. He was struggling so hard with something that shouldn't have to be this difficult. I couldn't blame him for his uncertainty. We were both in uncharted territory. "Lucas, you're not making things awkward," I said gently. "You've always been open with me, and I value that. Whatever you're feeling, we'll work through it together. You don't need to apologize for that." He looked up at me, his eyes searching my face as if looking for some sort of sign. "But what if it changes things?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "What if it changes everything between us?" My heart clenched. I knew he was scared. Scared of the unknown. scared of what he was feeling. But I also knew that his fear was rooted in the same love and respect we'd always shared. And that love, that connection couldn't be broken so easily. It won't change anything that matters, I said firmly. You're my grandson, and that will never change. No matter what, that's something we can always count on. Lucas's expression softened, and for the first time since he arrived, a small tentative smile tugged at his lips. I don't want to lose you, Grandma, he admitted, his voice thick with emotion. I don't know how to deal with all these feelings, but I don't want to lose you over it. My heart swelled with affection for him. You won't lose me, Lucas. No matter what we're going through, I'm not going anywhere. The words hung between us, both of us knowing that they weren't just about today or yesterday. They were about everything, about the bond we shared, the family we'd built, and the future we would continue to navigate together. For a few moments we simply sat there, the quiet comfort of our words settling around us. And then Lucas shifted again, his voice steady but still carrying that note of uncertainty. I've been trying to figure out what all of this means, he said, his hands still clasped tightly together. And I think I finally understand. I looked at him, waiting for him to continue. I've been feeling so lost, he admitted. But not because of you. It's everything else. My own life, my own choices, but you're the one person who's always been there for me. No matter what, you've been my anchor. My breath caught in my throat as I realized what he was saying. This wasn't about me. Not entirely. This was about him, about the struggle he was going through and figuring out who he was, what he wanted from life, and where he fit in the world. I understand, sweetheart, I said softly. You're not alone in this. I'll always be here for you no matter what. Lucas nodded, his eyes shining with emotion. I don't know what I'd do without you, Grandma. And in that moment I knew everything was going to be okay. The tension that had plagued us was beginning to dissolve, replaced by something stronger, a deeper understanding between us. We weren't perfect, but we were family, and that meant something. As Lucas got up to leave, I watched him pause at the door. He turned back to me, his eyes meeting mine one last time. I'm glad we talked, Grandma, he said quietly. Thanks for not pushing me away. I smiled, my heart full. You don't need to thank me. I'm always here for you, Lucas. Always. And as he left, I sat there for a long time, letting the quiet settle over me. In the end, what we had was simple. Love, trust, and a bond that couldn't be broken. Whatever came next, we would face it together. And that was enough. The conversation had changed everything, yes, but not in the way I had feared. It had made us closer, more connected. And sometimes that's all you can ask for in this world. To understand each other, to be there for one another, and to grow.